Call to order of a regular meeting of Goodyear City Council, Tuesday, 10 October 2006. Please, may I go in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we pray and ask for enlightenment for the City Council and staff this evening, and also enlightenment for the world leaders in a situation of increasing volatility and danger. Amen. We have minutes of the regular meeting held on 25 September and draft minutes of a special meeting held on 27 September. Any comments or questions? Could I have a motion to approve both, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion from Councilmember Scott and a second from Councilmember Antoniak. All those in favor signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, would you excuse Councilmember Susie?
Roll call. Roll call. Okay. 6 council members of the council are in attendance tonight. Mr. Souza is out of state, and he will not be here this evening. Could I have a motion to excuse Councilmember Souza, please?
So moved.
Motion second to excuse Councilmember Souza. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have 7-0 votes on the roll call and the minutes. Now we're to ratify and approve the expenditures. The expenditures are for accounts payable for April, May, and June. Any discussion or comments or questions? Okay, could I have a motion to approve and ratify those expenditures?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion from Vice Mayor Cavalier and a second from Councilmember Antoniak. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 7-0. Now it's opportunity for council members, staff, or members of the public to make commendation report on. Actually, this has changed slightly. Used to be commendations first, then we do reports, but now we're doing them combination. So any reports or commendations from council or public? This opportunity to do that now. Do we have any reports from the public? Seeing none, council member Lord.
I was honored to attend with our city manager, Stephen Cleveland, the 2006 Planning Awards in Mesa, in which Goodyear took the award for the new outdoor lighting ordinance. I also spoke at the Thursday Leadership West class and participated in a panel discussion on the role of city council. And it was kind of the week of the arts, and I really don't want to take it away from the two of you, because I know you, Mayor, serve on the steering committee for the West Valley Arts Council, and they had a 2-day seminar. And also, Councilman Antoniak, I attended an evening event of the Maricopa, it's called Maricopa Partners for Arts and Culture. And the thing that stood out in both of those evenings, or to say a couple of days, is that I was unaware that when businesses decide to relocate, and that's one of the things they're looking for, is what your culture and your arts for your city happen to be. But they don't tell you that when they come. So you really don't know that that is really a prime ingredient for them relocating. So I think the programs that the county is starting and the city is starting is certainly going to be beneficial to Goodyear.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to add to that, if I could.
Sure.
And the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Because we're going to have, Julie Richard is going to speak first, and this year anyway, on the impact of business on economic development, on culture and arts on economic development. Because I think they go hand in hand. I've known that for years.
That's because you're so smart, Frank.
Let us not forget.
Councilmember Scott.
Let us not forget we had the official opening of Station 184. Even though it opened in May, it's now official. And anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a state-of-the-art fire station, and it's certainly worth taking a little trip out there and visiting it.
Let me. Councilmember Holland. I know, Vice Mayor.
And then finish now.
I also attended the fire station opening, and I got a chance to see it back in May when it first opened, and now it's all totally furnished, and it's fabulous. It's such an opportunity. The architect has won a special award, so I thought maybe you guys might like to take a look at that. The second thing is I spent Friday morning at the water and wastewater treatment area. The changes that have taken place down there are phenomenal. I always invite my fellow city council people and mayor to come down and take a look at the treatment plant down there. And also we toured where the wells are. We went down to Rainbow Valley. It was a full morning of kind of catching up on the news. So thank Sean for setting all that up for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to make certain that all the council members received their invitation to the West Valley Human Services Alliance Transit Symposium Thursday, November the 2nd. It's a half-day symposium, begins at 7:30 with breakfast and goes till noon. It'll be held at the Avondale City Hall, and any other staff members or anyone who would like to attend is welcome. It's we'd like to get as many people there as possible. The committee has worked very hard to put this symposium together, and we'd like to make certain you all attend. I hope you got your invitations. Did you? Good.
Councilmember Antoniak?
Yeah, just two things. A couple of us attended Senator Kyle's function on Saturday morning, which was enlightening, and there was quite a crowd there. So it was definitely good for the West Valley to have Senator Kyle out here on our side of town talking to us. And then second, just to follow up on the conversation that we had with some of the public last time about Lipsco. I took it upon myself to call the Corporation Commission after the meeting last time. Spoke to Commissioner Chris Mays, and she was obviously still very, very sensitive to the topic. And as a matter of fact, she was supposed to have a report that was turned in to her by her staff about some of the issues. So I'd encourage staff to get their hands on that and take a look at that. If you haven't already, call her office and ask about that. But she's definitely open to any creative action that the 6 or 7 of us may have in the future as it relates to the Lipsco plan.
Is there any more information on the proposed meeting that we were to have?
I think staff is diligently working on that after the last meeting, and I spoke to the mayor after the last meeting about that. But I know that they're working to get that done.
Mr. Mayor, in response, November 13th is a scheduled date for the briefing with council and an action item
Okay, thank you.
with Lipsco.
Thank you. Just a couple of points. One is I certainly want to echo Councilmember Antoniak. Chris Mays is doing a superb job, I think, in support of Goodyear on that odor from that plant. And also, Councilmember Lord, I thank you for attending the 2-day session on arts, and the city manager and several members of the staff. No city was better represented than Goodyear, and every city in the West Valley was represented in a 2-day session in which people got an opportunity to express what they think about art situation right now in the West Valley and what they'd like to see changing, and their ideas for the future. So it was very good, I think. The final report, and if you did a survey several months ago, that survey was reviewed during this 2-day session. And then in January, we should get a brief up of the final report on the meetings, on the survey, and everything else, on recommendations on where arts needs to go in the West Valley. So that commission is coming to an end, and hopefully it will design a route for government and private industry to come together with the arts and further arts programs for those, not just here, but those who follow us. On baseball, we do have the application into the STA. It's a full application. It reflects signatures by the Indians and the landowners. It is a complete package. The City of Goodyear has done everything it should do as of this time. We are now waiting for a time on the STA's agenda to present in a more formal setting our plan for the baseball stadium. But the fact is, the plan is concrete, has been submitted, and is in their hands right now. There's still issues to be worked out, but not at all as far as the technical ramifications of this particular requirement or request on our part. And I would hope the next time we meet that we will say that the meeting is scheduled or it has already been accomplished. Okay, so we're that close to it. On colleges, it's really exciting on colleges, I think. We're going to have a conference, and the council will be invited to this, and several staff members. 8 to 11 November, we're going to have 4 college presidents here and maybe their staff, and they're going to participate with the landowners and developers in the West Valley, in the city of Goodyear, as to can the colleges and the owners of land form a partnership to place the colleges within the city over the next several years. So that conference is going to be really exciting for us. Do we have a future as a city which is attractive and desires to have colleges in its midst? And so far it's looking very positive right now. So we'll do that. The colleges will present what they'd like to see, and then the landowners will present, this is how we can possibly integrate our activities with you. So 8, they arrive, 9 and 10 we meet, and then Friday will be a day of golfing, hiking, Red Door Spa, everything at the Wigwam, so that it's another opportunity to interact with these folks. But the conference will be at the Wigwam, okay? And I certainly would invite the press. I think this is a big thing, and it could be the greatest thing that ever happened in Goodyear, in my view, if we can bring colleges to our city over the next several years. We're talking to 4, maybe 5, and there's others that might be interested also. It's just a tremendous potential. So that's where we are on that. We're moving forward. Okay, I think we've covered current events. Manager's summary of current events and reports.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, want to remind you that the GPEC annual meeting's tomorrow night. The other thing is October 21, 22, and 23 is a balloon race, and the U.S. Navy Blue Angels will be here. So it's a great opportunity for us to showcase Goodyear. We're expecting approximately 60,000 people to show up on those 3 days. And staff has done a tremendous job of coordinating efforts with the airport, with the sponsors, the traffic control, the parking, and getting adjacent businesses to provide the parking space necessary to make this work. So we're looking forward to that. Did any other staff have any information that we need to share tonight? That's all at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now's an opportunity for any citizen, anyone from the public who would like to make a comment on a subject not on this evening's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, we have 2 speaker cards,
Okay?
one from Carol Rosano and a second one from Evan Eschlinger.
Okay.
Oh, do you want my name?
Pardon me?
Do you want our names?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Carol Rosano, addressed it. You
Yes.
need my 18315 West Sweet Acacia, Goodyear.
Okay.
Heideggerberg, 11343 Santa Fe Lane, Goodyear.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members of the City of Goodyear. We are residents of Estrella Mountain Ranch and have lived there for over 2 years. We are here tonight not only for ourselves, but also for many of our friends and neighbors to express concern about our Goodyear's schools. Our main question is, why doesn't Goodyear have its own school district? Chandler, Gilbert, Mesa, Peoria, Scottsdale, and Tempe all have their own districts. Goodyear just doesn't have one. Most of the other states in our country use city boundaries to establish school districts. With the present growth we're experiencing and the future growth that's expected in Goodyear, we need our own school district. Presently, Goodyear schools are in many different districts, even in our neighborhood. Our elementary schools in one district and our high schools in another. We don't have the same school calendar. They don't work together as a team, and this is detrimental to the students. These are just a couple of the issues. Currently, Arizona is in the process of redistricting the schools. This is a great opportunity for Goodyear to speak out and have its own district. We have so many wonderful schools in our city, and you should be proud of them. Goodyear is trying to construct a wonderful city center, but please don't forget about our future, our kids. Action has to be taken immediately because the proposed district lines are to be finalized this month. Our spokesman for the West Valley is Mayor Thomas Schoaf. Yes, we have called to give our opinion about the meetings so we could attend, but we haven't heard anything. We've also emailed our comments to the School District Redistricting Committee, and we haven't heard anything. Here's a copy of the article. In closing, please make the education of our children a priority. We need your help to further enhance Goodyear by having its own school district. If the city of Goodyear doesn't want to have it or can't have its own school district, Estrella Foothills High School needs to be included with Aquafria Union High School District, where 2 other Goodyear schools are, and Estrella Mountain and West Star Elementary Schools should be included in the Litchfield Park School District. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I come to you this evening not as a member of the Goodyear community, but as a representative of the Arizona Education Association. My name is Evan Esslinger, and I'm here to bring you greetings not only from the 34,000 members of the Arizona Education Association, but more specifically to share with you an exciting new venture on our part. I will be heading up a new project for the AEA, focusing on the West Valley and really aimed at learning more about the tremendous impact that the population growth that we're seeing throughout the West Valley is having on schools, on communities, on community groups and entities, on civic governments. You know, it's interesting to me that the preceding speakers were talking about schools. It's obviously a tremendous issue, and it's something that's being affected by the growth that we're seeing throughout the West Valley population. We recognize that this growth poses some interesting challenges for communities, for schools, and we would like to discover more about what the association can do to partner with communities, to partner with our community schools that we obviously care so much about, and supporting each other, to form some new partnerships in supporting our communities and our community schools to help us rise to the unique challenges being faced by our communities and our schools so that we can all join together in supporting our schools, our school employees, and our community members. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Excuse me. I'll leave with you a card, if I may. I would invite you to contact me, speak with me a little bit, and let me know how I can be of assistance to you, how the Arizona Education Association can be of assistance to the community of Goodyear in supporting community members and community schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that all we have?
That's all we have.
Regarding the first presentation, Mayor Schoaf is, apparently, he's a West Valley representative on our redistricting commission. I didn't know he represented all of us, but that's great. But these ladies need some way to penetrate that commission. So I think we need to somehow or other take action on what, and I'm not sure how to do that, but we definitely need to respond to these ladies about an issue which other people have brought to our attention about having a Goodyear, name Goodyear, its own school district. So I think we need to be responsive to that request. Whether we can do it or not, is we should respond to it.
We have their names and information. We'll stay in touch with them. And as it relates to even the second individual, we can share with you some of the historical work that we've done with the districts in terms of creating some of those partnerships that you were talking about. So we'll work with both of them.
And could we also communicate to Tom Schoaf this concern?
Yes, and we'll report back to the council at the next meeting.
Okay,
as
thank
to what
you.
we're doing.
Okay, thank you for coming. We'll now move to the consent agenda and ask the clerk to read the items by title only, please.
Consent item 8A. Council will consider adopting Resolution 061083, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Arizona Department of Transportation to provide federal funding for an intelligent transportation system strategic plan, providing for an effective date. B, council will consider adopting Resolution 061084, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Arizona Department of Transportation to provide city funding to upgrade traffic signals at I-10 and Bullard Avenue to city standards, providing for an effective date. 8C, council will consider approving the purchase of a water truck, asphalt roller, and trailer and grade tractor in lieu of purchasing the road grader previously approved in fiscal year 0607 budget supplemental E150463007. The total cost to purchase the water truck, roller, and trailer and grade tractor is $255,060. D, council will consider authorizing the city manager to approve an amendment to the contract with Replenishment Services LLC in the amount of $55,022. This amendment is for the completion of the modification of designation for assured water supply, groundwater modeling coordination, and application for modification of a new designation for assured water supply and project management services to support city staff in regulatory issues associated with the Arizona Department of Water Resources. E, council will consider adopting Resolution 06-1086, declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled Engineering Design Standards and Policies Manual, Chapter 5, Section 5.1, and the supplemental standard details for Public Works Construction, Series 3300. F, council will consider approving the budget appropriation transfer proposed to fund Bullard Interchange Improvement, McDowell Road improvements, and reimbursement and additional costs associated with Thomas Road Park project totaling $600,000. Item G, council will consider adopting Resolution 06-1087, authorizing the City of Goodyear to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Liberty Elementary School District Number 25 for the joint use of facilities, providing for an effective date. H, council will consider ratifying the letter agreement with Suncor Development Company for the dedication of right-of-way and accept the dedication of right-of-way along Bullard Avenue at the northeast corner of Interstate 10 and Bullard Avenue. I, council will consider ratifying agreement for dedication of right-of-way with Snyder's of Hanover Snacks Incorporated for dedication of right-of-way along Bullard Avenue at the southwest corner of Bullard Avenue and Interstate 10, and accept the right-of-way dedication for a portion of Bullard Avenue and Interstate 10 along the frontage of the Snyder's property, generally located at the southwest corner of Interstate 10 and Bullard Avenue. Item J, council will consider ratifying letter agreement with I-10 Bullard Properties LLC for the dedication of right-of-way and accept the dedication of right-of-way along Bullard Avenue at the northeast west corner of Interstate 10 and Bullard Avenue. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone in the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Would anyone on council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, Vice Mayor Cavalier.
It's a point of question on item F. I just spoke to the city manager concerning those expenditures. I want to verify if those are correct. Mr. Cleveland, did you have an opportunity to check with Larry on this?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Cavalier, the question that Larry needs to validate is that what we're doing is we're transferring $3.3 million out of several accounts, and we're moving those to new projects. Those three are the three projects in item F that are listed. And for the record, there's $1.5 million in the Bullard interchange. There's $1.2 million in the McDowell reimbursement, and the $600,000 for Thomas Road. And he wanted to make sure that that amount was the transfers and what is the impact on the improvement district, where those monies were being reduced from.
Okay, and if the numbers are correct.
Yes, the numbers are correct. Those were items that when we reviewed the various components of the budget, these were three items that had been included throughout our commitments but did not get included in the budget. They do not reduce any existing projects. It takes money and appropriation out of a proposed assessment district line item that we put in for that purpose. Its source of funding is $3.3 million of general fund cash that we had in the general fund at July 1st, over and above what we had anticipated when the budget was put together.
So this doesn't come out of our contingency fund?
It does not come out of the contingency fund or of any other project that you had approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to accept the consent agenda as read by the clerk. Items 8A through J.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Scott and a second from Vice Mayor Cavalier. We have a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Lord. Aye. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to the business part of our agenda. We have 2 items on our agenda. We'll start with business registration ordinance, and I believe Tina Daniels, is she here? Yes, she is.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh and council members. My name is Tina Daniels, and I was hired in May in the capacity of business registration technician, which is now being housed in our finance department. It was previously housed in code compliance, but in my opinion, it does make more sense to have business registration housed in finance. Somehow, to me, businesses and finance just seem to go hand in hand with education, with what they do and what they try to accomplish. Currently, when I was given that position, I was tasked to expedite the implementation of our business registration program. During the past few months, I have held numerous one-on-one meetings with various stakeholders, identified information that was valuable to capture within this program. I visited other cities, and I've spoken with Sherilyn Homan of our Chamber of Commerce just to make sure that we were all on board with the same issues and goals that we needed. It has been my goal to build a consensus with everyone and then quickly move forward with the implementation of this program. I have been in training in the operation of our HTE business registration module, and I'm even currently inputting some of the addresses into our system so that when the program is ready to start, we'll have a jump start on it. Also, there is additional training scheduled for the end of this month, and startup of the program on my timeline is scheduled to begin on January 1st. I've developed a work plan and a timeline, prepared a simple, easy-to-read application form, and have made some changes to the original ordinance to simplify the process. Some of the highlights of these changes would be the omission of some specific types of businesses from the business registration ordinance, since they were previously addressed in other ordinances. And so there wouldn't be any confusion. I've taken those out because they were previously addressed. Also, I've taken the omission of special events out from the business registration program. Special events, the process of that is now being looked at and is being handled by our legal department. They are preparing a process to handle special events. So that has also been taken out of business registration to simplify the business registration process. I have also added some enhancements to the program by compiling an information sheet addressing zoning regulations for those wishing to operate a home business. Home businesses, of course, do not mean the occasional garage sale, a casual sale of one object or that. These are for the people who actually have businesses in their homes. I have a page of zoning regulations, and now as businesses, home businesses come in, I'll be able to hand them that so they do know all of our zoning regulations on that. Also with the business registration, I'm requesting owner information on all rental properties. This has become important and will assist our code compliance division, because there is the case where some rental properties perhaps are not being kept up to code. Code tries to get in touch with the owners of the property. We don't have that information. So by getting this, the information, it will be there to assist code compliance. One thing, just keep in mind, this is a registration program. This is not a regulatory program. Our city is desperately in need of this information. It's invaluable information. Our police department needs it, code compliance needs it, economic development, and I am just trying to start the process of bringing all this data together so I can send out reports and keep everybody abreast of what businesses are going on in town. There has one question that has come up about clarification to access of all businesses by police and code because of the possible impact on home businesses. In the ordinance itself, it's section 8-7-7A1, where it does say, enter free of charge at any reasonable time, any place of business for which a business registration permit is required by that article. That's giving police and code the authority to enter there to make sure they do have the business registration. If we can just add in the 4 words, any place of business open to the public. If we put that in there, then it won't be confused with the presumption that possibly they could just go into a home business. It would just be any business open to the public. And with that, if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Tina, what about the question of the number of rentals before they had to register?
Number of rentals right now, that's basically a sales tax question. The way I am addressing the code is if you are in business, we need the information. Currently, if you own 3 or more properties that you are personally renting, you need to be charging the sales tax. Business registration will have nothing to do with collection of sales tax. We just need the information so we know the homeowners. And actually, the county does require that anyone renting a property is to register with the county as a owner of a rental property. And this way, we will also be able to obtain the information.
Well, let me go to the public first. Is that, are you finished, Tina?
Yes.
Okay, could I ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only, please?
Ordinance 06-1029, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Goodyear, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending ordinance 04-902 by deleting Article 8-7 of Chapter 8 in its entirety and replacing it with Chapter 8, Article 8-7, Sections 1 through 10 pertaining to business registration permits, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Okay, I'll go to the public in a second, but could I have a motion on that?
Motion to accept ordinance 06-1029 is read by the clerk.
Second. Motion from Councilmember Scott and a second from Councilmember Holland. Okay, thank you. Opportunity now for anyone in the public who would like to comment on this proposed ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, can we get something administrative out of the way with an amendment real quick on that motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I amend? I'd like to.
Go amend the
Yeah, I'd like to amend.
paragraph on.
If you'll entertain the motion to amend the motion on the floor. I move that we amend the motion to reflect that 8-7-7, inspection of a permit, A1, place the words after business, the first incident of business, place the words, quote, open to the public, unquote.
Okay, so moved.
That's a second, or that's an amendment?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, I have an amendment to the motion from Councilmember Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Scott. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, any comments from the public again? Could we discuss the amendment? Is there any opposition to the amendment?
I think it was just based on what staff was requesting.
No, I know I asked for it before. Do we have any objection here?
I think it clarifies.
I think it's important.
I think
Yeah, I think it clarifies, yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment to the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, 6-0.
You don't need a roll call vote?
No. Okay, now we're at council on the motion. It's for the passing the ordinance itself. Take comments on that now, please. Councilmember Scott?
A couple of comments. You know, this is so overdue. Having been very active with one of the homeowners associations here, where we would like to make some changes out there, and to contact the owners of rental properties has been almost an impossible, if not an impossible task. So for that, I thank you so much. The other is, I'm sure you did not list all of the hazardous listings that will pertain to the owners of these properties in order to get a permit. But I want to be sure you have hazardous materials listed, and from a safety point of view, I want to make sure that you include watchdogs. I don't know if we do now, but for a fire department or even a police department to enter a premises where there are watchdogs and not know about them could be extremely hazardous to one's health. So if that's not on your list, we certainly ought to include
I
it.
could add something like that onto the application form.
Please do. Thank you.
Yes, I have one, and I spoke to our city manager about this today, and I don't know if he related that to you or not, Tina, about the arts businesses, because they have been approached by several arts businesses that are home businesses, where they do sculpturing and artwork in the home. They buy their materials wholesale, and they use their license. They have to have a license to buy their materials. Problem with the state license is this: you don't collect tax on artwork that you sell. The state of Arizona does not tax artwork. So when you sell this artwork, you do not collect the tax. Therefore, your monthly statement that you fill out does not reflect, it reflects zero. It reflects all the costs and everything, but it reflects a zero in tax collected. After 6 months or so, the state tires of sending you these forms, and you have to reapply for a license all over again. Many of the art people in other cities are using the city tax license, or whatever you want to call it, as that instrument to keep this up so that they can continue to buy their materials wholesale. Is it possible to use this certificate of whatever they will receive, this license for that?
You got that, yeah. I'm going to defer to Joe Pizzillo here about the sales tax.
Mayor, Councilmember, Vice Mayor Cavalier, when it comes to sales tax, they have to have a privilege tax license, a city privilege
That's right.
tax license in order to buy it. And it's my understanding that it's a model city tax code exemption, but I do not believe we exempt artwork, the city.
The city doesn't.
The city doesn't. So what would happen is this business registration would have nothing to do with that. They would have to have a valid privilege license to go to the wholesaler to buy the materials, and then when they sell it, they would be responsible for reporting city tax. Now, if they have a bad resale certificate and they give it to the wholesaler, actually the wholesaler is responsible for paying gross receipts tax. So what would happen is if anybody would do an audit on that wholesaler and he did not have a valid resale certificate, an actual valid license from the artist, then that wholesaler would be held liable for the tax. So, this would have nothing to do with the sales tax. They would still have to have a valid city privilege tax
How does the
license.
city collect the tax?
The city is in the state collection system. So what happens is they have a state license number, excuse me, with the Goodyear ID on it. So they file with the state, and for Goodyear, and then the state sends the money directly to us.
They don't collect.
They collect for us. The state collects for us.
No.
No, I'm telling you, if they have a city sales tax license, they're responsible. Now, whether they're reporting correctly or not, that's another issue for
I
our
don't
auditor.
know of a single art organization in this city that, as far as I know, throughout the state, it's even in the state regulation.
Well, I'm talking
They do
about-
not collect tax.
Well, I'm talking about the city taxable item.
I understand, but do they collect the city tax through the state
Yes,
transaction?
that's correct. They're supposed to, okay? In other words, I'll give you a perfect example. If you have 3 or more rental properties, the state doesn't tax it, the cities do. So what'll happen is they'll have a state license to report for the city of Goodyear only. So the return would go to the state, they would collect our money only for us and send it to us. State has nothing to do with it, but they're still responsible for filing that sales tax return to the state on our behalf. Commercial rental is the same thing. So there are instances in which the city taxes specific activity, the state does not. But since the state is our agent, in which they're responsible for reporting to the state on our behalf, and then the state takes the money and reports it to us. So if there are people who are in the art business and we tax it that aren't just reporting, that's probably something Marvin would want to look at. our sales tax are.
Well, if they're selling it outside the city of Goodyear, is that reportable sales to the city of Goodyear?
Mayor, Councilmember Cavalier, it's a gross receipts tax, and it's based on where the business is physically located, okay? So it's just like, for example, if I was making a sale, retail at a local shop here, and I would come in and buy it, but I live somewhere else, then that's a different issue, okay? But, yeah, it's a gross receipts tax. So if it's on order, all right, and they place it outside the city, possession is occurring outside the city, that's a different issue. There are some exemptions as far as that goes. But if the sale is being consummated in the city, then the city is due that tax, okay? But there's always that possibility, and that's why we brought Marvin on board to look at a variety of areas out there within our sales tax. But it would be a sales tax issue. This business registration would have nothing to do with allowing them to buy anything tax-free. They would still require to have a sales tax license.
And that goes through the state transaction?
Yeah, they're our agent. We don't collect our own local sales tax. There's about 80 cities, if I'm not mistaken, that are in the state program in which they have to file, those businesses file directly to the state on our behalf. We all operate under the Model City Tax Code, though.
Okay.
Does that?
Councilmember Scott?
Now, hazardous materials. When a company lists their hazardous materials when they apply for a permit, will that be reviewed by somebody from hazmat, or so that if there's something in the way of a chemical we're not familiar with, we can get very familiar with it? Example, several years ago in one of the plants in Glendale, it turned out they had a compound that was an organic cyanide. And when they had a fire in this plant, no one had any knowledge as to what temperature this might liberate free cyanide, which is a little bit of concern. So if you don't have a mechanism for reviewing these chemicals that are being stored as hazardous materials, I strongly suggest that we put one in place.
Mayor Kavanaugh, Councilmember Scott, I have addressed that issue with our fire marshal, and we've discussed it on the application form. There is a location where they are to list hazardous materials, and more importantly, to the fire marshal is the fact that they list the type of business that they have, that they can gather more information from just knowing the type of business, because then they understand the chemicals that they'll be dealing with. And I will daily, if not then weekly, give them a report of all the information that I've gotten so that they can go out whenever they look and do their fire inspections.
As long as somebody's reviewing this.
Right. It will get there.
Tina, I'd like to give you an alternate view on the second page of the COAC. It's owners of rental properties within the city will be required to register as a business. And I understand there's value in that, but let me give you another perspective on it. And you mentioned that this has nothing to do with the rental property tax, and I agree with you. But the rental property tax throughout the state varies per city, and it's usually, and I'm talking strictly residential, and commercial is different. But if it's residential, and if you own 3 or more residential properties you rent, at least that's usually the minimum, you have to pay a rental property tax. It's small, you pay it or the tenant pays it. And the reason it's 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 is because people who rent, it's a hassle to have one rental property and have to pay a rental tax. To even know to pay a rental tax can be a challenge. So there's value in that small number, not for paying taxes, but in strictly looking at it, are we asking our citizens to do more than we should be asking them to do? And that is understand the law regarding taxes, or understand the law regarding business licenses when you're doing nothing more than renting a house. And oftentimes people become landlords not because they want to, but because they have to. They get shipping orders to go overseas, a business movement from Arizona to New York. They can't sell their home. They have to rent it if they possibly can. That's their saving grace. So they're renting it not as a landlord, not to make money, just to break even. And, you could have 1 or 2 of those situations. I don't think that we should be expecting someone, for example, who lives in New York to understand that he has to register his property in the state of Arizona as a rental property. There has to be some minimal exception for people who aren't in this as a business. they're in it strictly as a necessity to cover their costs, their home ownership costs. And it happens to all of us in our lifetime.
State tax.
That you get transferred out during a recession or whatever, and you simply can't unload your house. Go ahead, Joe.
Mayor, the only thought behind that is the county, it's my understanding, the county requires you to notify them whether you have one unit or two units.
Let's let the county worry about that.
Okay, and the idea is that there's taxes, more taxes, I guess, involved if you have to do that. And if, for some reason, if the council ever decides to change that, you would have that data, or you can inform them that it's 3 or more if they register. But that was kind of the thought behind it, whether you agree with that thought or don't agree with that. That was the logic behind it, and we're open to.
No, I don't disagree with you necessarily. I just think what we're doing, we're levying on our people a hassle. And certainly, if there should be some minimum, even if it's one. And these people who are moved don't know anything about this county law. They aren't doing this. They don't know that. And they aren't going to know about our license, so why are we expecting them to know about it?
Mayor Kavanaugh, we're just, in my opinion, we're just trying to gather the most information that we can to help our city, to help the code compliance people, because some of these properties are not being taken care of as they should be, and they are causing a problem. So granted, we won't get everybody who just has one rental property out there, but if we can get in some of them, we at least will have that information that might be of use to our city then, to help the upkeep of it. And we don't really want to hassle anybody, and we don't have it regulatory. It's more of a request. We're hoping people comply with it, and we can gather as much information as we can.
And I don't disagree with you, but the person who lives in Germany for 3 years is going to have to refile this every year, right?
It is a form. I will mail it to them.
I mean, it just seems
Simple.
ridiculous that we expect people to do those sorts of things, albeit the ultimate objective is understandable. It won't be understandable to them. So, I don't know, is there any, what do you think about this?
Well, I can argue either way on it.
I could too.
Mayor, it's
I know.
a real hassle with regard to, whether they have one home or 3 homes that are rental properties, and then when you have an issue that has to be voted on, you can't get in touch with these people. It's a real problem.
Mayor, we just had problems, and Brenda can verify this, on the architectural committee in Pebble Creek, of all communities, which is pretty high in development. But we had people who left their homes and put them out for rentals, and they really were doing a lot of destruction to the property, or weren't keeping the property up. And trying to locate them, trying to get anything done, it really became a problem. So it's somewhat of a protection, and I don't.
It's just another tool that we can
It's just another
hopefully
tool, and I'm going
use.
to tell you, the people that live around those homes are appreciative when you make that attempt to try to bring that owner to the city to make sure that he's doing the things he should to his property, keeping the property.
At least we can
proper.
inform them.
Yeah,
Right.
and then you do have, by this protection, you do have people that are landowners out there that own 2 or 3 or 4, and they put very little money into them, and who suffers? The neighbors suffer. And I think one prime example of that is probably, we have communities like Wildflower, the earlier on committees that have a lot of rentals in those, and so for the protection of those people, they have pride of ownership of their homes, and so maybe this will help them in their neighborhoods.
It may help us notify them, but it isn't going to help us. They aren't going to do anything about it probably if they're out of town. And the vast majority of people who rent their homes are good people who do care what it looks like when they're gone. But it is arguable. I would certainly argue in less government rather than more. So I would not want to. I don't think anybody's going to make a motion on that, and I can't. So.
How would a business registration be different than, if we're talking about code enforcement action of rental property and that sort of thing, different than the property ownership records that I can draw up in a moment's notice? I mean, give me 2 minutes and I'll, granted, sometimes they're not 100% accurate.
And that was it.
How do we think we're going to get different information?
I don't know if we'll get different information. We might get more information. We might have some information. From what I have heard from code compliance, there has always been an issue of trying to receive the accurate information from the county. I'm not exactly sure why that is or how it works, but I just thought by using this tool, we may be able to get additional information that could help those people, to help keep the neighborhoods up. It's one simple form.
There's no fee connected.
No, there's no fee
Well,
connected to it.
we don't really
Yes.
we don't have a definition in the ordinance that's in front of us, and I'm looking through where it's, in terms of addressing this is in your policies, what businesses will be required, right?
I believe it would come under...
Personal homes in one of these.
I think it just addresses anyone doing business, whether they are collecting the use tax or not collecting
Okay,
use
so
tax.
it doesn't address
Not specifically, but
rental home
that's
property
where it
specific.
would come in that
Because,
section.
I mean, I think the argument is valid. I mean, it seems to me, renting one home, yeah, you might be renting it for 90 days, you might be renting it for a year, you might be renting it for 3 years on a deployment for one home. The minute you start renting two homes in any given area, you start to enter the realm of business, to me. And so, I mean, I empathize with the argument that maybe it ought to be two or more homes in the city of Goodyear. I don't know that you're going to get, personally, I don't know that you're going to get the information you want to get, one. Two, I think you're going to cause yourself, I'd rather have you focused on business registration than rental property registration.
and we will
and
be.
not have you consumed by trying to track down
No, and it'll be more...
code enforcement information.
Right, we're asking for the information. We are not demanding it, we are hoping that it comes
I don't
forward.
even know how you're going to be able to identify to ask.
Right, right. Hopefully with advertisement and flyers and the information gets out there.
But the
Right.
sergeant in Germany right now is not going to read the
No.
advertisement in the West
Right.
Side View. So I can see the argument. So I don't know that there's necessarily a motion. I don't know if it's maybe there's not a definition for us to make a motion about it. but-
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Antoniak, there's a definition in section 871. If I were to interpret that section as written, I would interpret that a rental property would be subject to this ordinance. So if it is your intent to accept out rental properties, I have some language I suggest as far as a motion. But that's up to you.
I agree.
Okay. Would anyone like to hear the suggested comment?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on how many units you want to put your threshold at, but you've talked about 3 or fewer, so I think I would probably suggest you have an exception that you have a bold that says business, and then it goes into your definition of what a business
Right.
is. Third line down, it says business does not include schools, churches, athletic groups. I'd probably put a comma and put the languages or owners, operators of 2 or fewer residential rental properties or units, and then continue on, or nonprofit organizations as deemed by IRS. I think that would clarify it if it is your intent to accept out one or two, owners of 1 or 2 rental units.
I'd say 2 or more.
Two or
Residential.
or more than one.
Well, do you want to?
Oh, 2 or, either way. I
Two or
guess you
fewer.
could put it either way.
Well, I thought the intent was the owners of, you have 1 rental house or you have 2, but not if you have 20. I assume you might want to
Right,
know
and
that.
3 is a little much too, frankly.
Yeah, that's why I said
It's
2 or
beginning to
fewer.
look like a business.
3, you're in business.
that's what
You're
I
in
think. That's what I
business.
think.
No, I agree with that.
That's why I suggested
2, you're in business. I have to tell you, 2, you're in business.
Yeah, I mean,
People, I think 2 is, you're in
More
business.
than one.
So I think you have one rental home and you can't get rid of it and you go off and buy someplace else. That's normal. And you know, it's really, I know it's like getting government in your household again, but it's just the neighborhoods. They're the people that are having the problem. We can all sit
Well,
up
and
here and, you know, say, hey, we don't need this, but talk to the neighbor. Chief, you just, do you find that? I mean,
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
yeah.
It is the people who live there.
Right.
Who have the unsightly property and those types of things, that it makes it very difficult to go after the owner for those types of properties when we don't know who that owner is.
That's right.
Necessarily, or they're out of state. Makes it very difficult to do that.
But if people know we have this regulation, you might have a neighbor that will come forth, will give you the information you do need to try to contact that person that owns that house. It does give us something.
And we may not get 100% compliance, but some information on some properties is better than nothing.
Okay, is there interest in?
What was that language again?
language I suggested was in 871, under the definition of business.
Right.
Insert after the words athletic groups,
Right.
owners/operators of 2 or fewer residential rental properties or units.
I think I still, I'm for one.
Well, you can make a motion to,
Is there a motion on the table?
No, there's
not. I move what we use the verbiage of more, a person that has more than one is considered in the business of home rentals.
We'll just move that up into the definition
Okay.
instead of the exception. That would work too.
a person with more than one residential rental property.
Would be classified as a business. Yes, that would work.
Okay. I have a motion from Councilmember Lord and a second from Councilmember Scott. Open for discussion.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead, let's go right here first, then we'll go there.
Real quick clarification. So it'll say owners, operators of of 2 or more residential rental properties.
More than one.
More than one.
More than one? Okay, so owners, operators of more than one residential rental property.
Right.
I can support that. That's all.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Okay, my question comes with, this person who has just a one rental property could still be in business. His other rental properties may not be in the city of Goodyear. He may have one
Well, but it wouldn't
here,
matter.
one in Avondale, one, and so they're all over.
That's the way it-
So you're not covering
Now,
person who's in business.
now we're starting to make glue out of the horse.
Well, but I'm just saying, there's that.
I guess we're just going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and that helps the military person that can't sell their house, but their PCS.
Well, I just wanted you to be aware of that, because there's still that person, and he may just have one rental house in the city of Goodyear.
It's an astute observation, but I think that the spirit, I think, of the discussion is, if you end up with 3 or 4 homes of rental properties on one block or within one neighborhood or within one city, you've now started to venture in business. Yeah, you might have 20 homes throughout the state, but I'm not going to meddle in that.
Right.
How are you going to meddle in that?
Okay.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. Any more comment on that? I'd like to, if the attorney would read it again for us.
What I would do is I would put it into the definition section under business. After the word indirect, it would say, or owner or operator of more than one residential rental unit would be classified as a business.
That's what I understood it to be. Okay, we have an amendment on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Guys have it 6-0. Opportunity now. Any further comment on the main motion?
I can call the question.
Okay. All those, let's see, is this a ordinance? Do we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lord?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak?
Aye.
Councilmember Scott?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Okay, we'll now move to the last item on our business agenda, and that's acquisition of long-term water storage credits. And Dave Iwanski.
Mayor, council members, good evening. This item deals with the approval of an agreement between the City of Goodyear and Sienna Development for the acquisition of long-term water storage credits in accordance with applicable state law, and to authorize the city manager to execute necessary documentation to consummate this transaction. Once these long-term storage credits are acquired, we will then almost immediately turn around and pledge those credits to the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District to meet our replenishment obligation for water delivery year 2005. The cost of the long-term storage credits is $116 an acre foot. The cost of our replenishment obligation is $236 an acre foot. So what this represents is a straightforward business decision that affords us an alternative way to meet our CAGRD obligation while simultaneously saving our ratepayers and taxpayers money. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I move that council authorize city manager to approve an agreement for the city of Goodyear to acquire 820.7 acre feet of long-term water storage credits from Sienna Development.
Motion from Councilmember Antoniak, second from Councilmember Scott. It's open for discussion.
challenge anybody to argue with Mr. Alonsky.
Really?
Councilmember Scott?
I think this is great, but how do you know when this water becomes available? How do you know?
On eBay?
Contact you?
It's just paper water.
Mayor, Councilmember Scott, a lot of credit has to go to George Fletcher from Replenishment Services. Part of his contract with us, we have the blessing of our city manager and our city attorney to become a lot more aggressive and a lot more creative in terms of credit acquisition to enhance our water portfolio and to save, as I said, our taxpayers and ratepayers money. Mr. Fletcher identified some of those willing sellers. We are obviously a willing buyer in these sets of circumstances where we can acquire at a good rate and then pledge them to meet our replenishment obligation, or simply to, as I said, enhance our water portfolio and put those credits away to build our water resources supply, both short-term and long-term.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
No,
Councilmember Holland?
I just want to say that how proud I am of you guys all working together and trying to find that extra water for us, because we know how important it is, and we want to make sure that it's there through all these hot summers that we have coming up. So they've really been working hard at this. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Any follow-up action by staff?
It's real.
Cleveland?
That's the biggest farce that they ever came up with.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff will be following up with the Corporation Commission for a copy of their report regarding the issues of Lipscomb, and we will have that information as a part of the November 16th presentation that's coming up, correct?
Yes. Thank you.
The second one is that we will follow up with the redistricting committee chair to find out how we can learn a little bit more about the redistricting process as presented by the two ladies this evening, and get back with them in terms of how they might be able to better access that process. And thirdly, the gentleman's presentation, staff will work with him and provide him information on what we have historically done with the various districts here since about 1989, 1995, when we formed the City School Developer Compact. I'm sorry, on the item related to the Corporation Commission, it's November, instead of November 16th, it's November 13th council meeting.
So it's a meeting in which we can make a decision.
Yes.
That's what we want.
So that'll be part of the broader package of information.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any inquiries of staff by council? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Meeting's adjourned.